Hi, everyone. Welcome to Clarity 16.3.3 Feature Supportability Training. My name is Dave Sprague. We are going to talk about the new reporting area and in particular, the new export capabilities. So what's new? Well, we've got some additional export formats. PowerPoint was available in the prior release, but we're going to talk about all three of these, but we'll talk about PDF and the new CSV export format, which is a data table extraction format only. So we'll talk about that. There's a new on-screen notification banner that kind of gives the user a heads up that something is happening. And just so you know, the reporting workspace, as of this release, the beta tag has been removed. In addition to those key formats that are supported, there's a number of report content that is now incorporated in the exported document, whether it be PDF or PowerPoint. There's a number of features that the report designer would use to set up a report, and I'll show you those, but in the context of showing how the exported document honors these configuration settings. So let's get on with the demo. We'll talk about PDF first. We'll talk about the CSV export. We'll show you how to create a report using that new format, CSV format. And then we'll go into all the details of these other capabilities that are the designer would use that are incorporated in the exported documents. So let's jump into that right now. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm starting out as the report viewer, and I'm going to show off export to PDF. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the resource time review by manager report. You can see this has a number of tabs, time details, and most of these are grids with some other pie charts on them. But the point is that there's multiple tabs here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see export up in the right-hand corner here. This used to say in the prior release, export to PowerPoint. That was our only supported format. So if I click that, I can see my two options. I'll click export to PDF. And you can see the notification banner comes up. There's a cancel button. I'll show you what that does in a second here. I'll go ahead into the notifications area, and you can see there is a new entry for the PDF. I'll go ahead and click that. It throws it into the download area, and I'll just go ahead and open that up. And you can see here, the left-hand side kind of gives you a clue that there's a number of pages and tabs. So you can see there's a tab here, a page that's dedicated to the tab name, followed by the content. There's another tab name and its content, and so on and so forth. And so we're getting a combination of pie charts and number charts, etc., and including the grids, right? So this is basically the PDF document that gets exported, and all content is exported. There's no concept of now just exporting a single tab. You get all of the report output separated by a page dedicated to each tab name. So let's go back. I want to show you the impact of doing the cancel area. So again, I am the report viewer. I'm going to go ahead and hit, oh, there's another way to get to these things beyond just hitting the icon. If I go into reports, there's available reports is where we started. There's scheduled reports and reports library. So we just ran this last one here. There is a download icon here, so I can come back to it and grab it. It does a download. I'll go into the download area, and it's repeating the name. It's actually appending it with a 1, but I can just click that open, and there it is. It's available for me right there. The other thing I want to do is show you the impact of selecting the cancel. So I'll open up the same report, just so we can stay with that. I'll hit export PDF, and well, I don't really want to run that, so I'm going to hit cancel. So now what I want to do is I want to go into that reports library, and you can see the entry here. It's just got a status of canceled. In some cases, if there's an error condition, you might see that as well. So basically, this is just the indicator that you stopped the job. And there is no download button available, obviously, because we canceled it. Okay, so let's move on to the CSV extract. So again, I'll stay here as the report viewer, and I'm going to open my investment status report from the available reports tab. I'll show you the report designer persona in just a second. But here, what we can see is, this report is a table, because we've found out that a lot of customers want to do extracts of the system. And so this allows you to develop a number of columns and a voluminous amount of rows. But you'll see here that there, as the report viewer, there's no tabs. There's no concept of multiple tabs. There is a filter button here, and I can see my available filters that are here that were afforded to me by the designer. That's another feature that'll be covered in another session. But you can see here export to CSV, and of course, schedule. For the first step here, I'll close that out. I'm gonna grab the schedule button. And the main thing I want to show here is when I go into the export area, I do have a CSV format. It's a read-only, I can't disable it. This is simply it is the single format that's afforded for this type of report. So I'm going to hit cancel just for purposes of coming back out here and hitting export, and I'll select the export to CSV. Again, the notification banner, that was quick. I've got a new notification in the bell icon. You can see my CSV export is complete. I'll go ahead and select that. And then I'm going to grab this from the download button. And I can see right away here, I've got my system set up to be convert things automatically from CSV to Excel, which a lot of people do. But you can see, the content is all here. If I look behind this file, there's 215 rows of information. If I come here, I'll just highlight this row. There's 218 rows, and that's accounting for the top 3 rows dedicated to the various information, including the totals row, right? So that is the powerful export to CSV format. And like I said, my environment is set up to convert it to Excel. So super powerful, and you can just do a complete data dump, if you will, from the application. Okay, so let's switch over to the designer experience for this one. I'll go into the report designer, and this is the one we were just looking at. But what I want to do is kind of walk through the new flow so you can see how that it behaves. So I'll click on new report. I'm going to give this a name of investment status updates. Now you can see there's now 3 types of formats that are available: responsive, fixed. In this release, fixed is the only format that can be used to export to PowerPoint or PDF. And then the data extraction CSV is for exactly what we're talking about. If I hover on the layout format, I get the definitions of all these and types of things that are and are not supported. I'll go ahead and pick, and you'll notice there's, based on responsive, I have different formats that I can configure to, but I'll go ahead and select data extraction. Those things disappear. This becomes single table, and I'll show you how that manifests in just a second here. So I'll hit create. The next step is to really choose the data provider. Unlike fixed and responsive, you can select multiple data providers, but this and I can show you, I can come back to report designer, new report. When I pick fix, I gotta do a name. Let me test real quick, pick fixed. And I can pick multiple data providers, right? So I'm going to cancel out of that and come back to the designer. Nope, that's not it. The report, investment status, dates, and I'll pick the extraction, go create, and I am going to pick the single data provider. See, it's like a checkbox. I can select other ones, but I can only check one, right? So depending on the nature of my content, I should choose the right one. So what happens here is you land, the system automatically drops a table widget into view. There's no other ability to include other types of widgets like a bar chart, column chart, what have you, right? So there is a filter button here available, which allows me to configure report level filters. And that's another training session that will be presented by one of my colleagues. But let's go ahead, and you can see here I can configure the table. I can give it a name if I wish. Right. I can include appropriate metrics, what have you. I can pick, the text, show total row, and there's some styling that we'll talk about a little bit later in demonstration. But the main thing I want to do now is basically configure the grid. So I'll just add a few things. Name, start, we'll start, investment start, finish, and I'll grab, there we go. And we should start to see it. I'll build this, you can size these things however you wish. Of course, I can bring in other content. What I do want to do is over in our format tab, you can see I'll talk about this a little bit more, but there's padding, which is really the spacing around the entire table itself for the widget, because this applies to all the widget types. So I'll just kind of set this to an average number. And I do want to reduce my white space. You can see as I increase, I get more white space in between the rows here. And here I'm going to just kind of drop it down to 1 to minimize the white space. And in the style tab, I'm going to go ahead and fill the title with some blue. Give it a blue. I'm going to center the name. You can see the name stops over. I'm going to kind of make it a little font size a little bit bigger, perhaps. There you go. And I'll go ahead and hit publish. So what I want to do now is kind of come back. I'm going to hit edit. And then I'll select preview. And this is an area where I can also export to CSV as a designer. So I'll just select export to CSV. I get the notification. And here it is up in my bell icon. There's my investment status updates, and voila, there's my report. I can just use my normal Excel characteristic tooling to get the view I want. Right? I can grab bold to make these things bold, etc. Again, I don't need this one. This is the old one. This is the new one we just created as the designer. So if I think about this, I've got my 217 rows. There was 215 here. I've got 2 because I didn't include the total. 2 dedicated to the column. So that is the designer experience of using the CSV export format. Okay, let's move on to show how other reporting configurations, other new reporting configuration capabilities are supported in export. So specifically, I'm going to talk about the text, link, image, and line widgets, and then review their configurations in an exported report. So as a designer, I'm going to come back and I'm going to open up our Portfolio Dashboard 2.0. Again, this is another fixed report. Again, it has a number of tabs. What I want to come over to is the Risk Detail tab. Let's see, am I in the right one? 2.0 tab, sorry. So these are some new widget types that were introduced in this release, and I'll show them real briefly, but in the context of how they basically flow through to the exported document. I'll use PowerPoint. So I'll focus first on the image icon. You can see I just go out and choose a file. I grab my image. Very, very straightforward. The risk detail band, this is a text field here that I put in a label. I've given in the format area, I've used the padding like I was showing earlier. If I increase or reduce, you can see the effects of that. And it is telling me max min. From a style perspective, I've filled in some color details there. I'll go white just to get rid of it. Clear the format. I'll put it back because I want to show the effects of that. I've actually increased the font on this to size 48. I've bolded it. I've used the coloring of the font itself. There's a font here that's been selected to color that, and I've used center align. So that's the text properties, text widget properties. You can see here there's a line. There's horizontal, there's vertical setting, the padding, of course, and I can pick this color of it, the thickness, right? And then down here is another version of the text that I can use. I can put a label on it, and I can make it a link. And I put in some value ops information. And from a styling perspective, I've kind of increased the font size as well to make it reasonable. And I've given a color coding behind the scenes, right? So there's some great setup and formatting and styling capabilities are now afforded to all the widgets, but this is related to image, text, line, and a URL. If I click on that as the designer, it takes me out to my target location. So all that's behaving as expected. So I'll just, and it opens up in a new browser. So let me come back to my dashboard here. So, so from that's, I want to go through some of these other tabs and then do an export to show the impact of all of these. So those are some key capabilities there related to those new widget types. In this same report, I'll go to the financial detail tab to show, really want to show off here is our row per period metric orientation for planned cost here. You can see planned costs and forecast costs are stacked on top of each other with my grand totals and then several periods. If I come into my configure area, I can see down in the setup zone, there's a per period metric orientation. I can just change that on the fly. So I'm going to set it back to rows here. And then I want to go into the financial 2.0 tab and just show you this is this is the kind of the row or the column setup where I have per period planned cost, forecast cost for the period with some grand totals, right? So this is oriented in columns, and this tab that I'm navigating back to is organized as in rows. There are a lot of customers that want some flexibility on how to present those things. So that's basically the designer experience for configuring, the orientation of per period metrics. Now so that's this guy. That's the traditional approach. Let's go into the next tab. And this is really meant to show off, if I go into the grid, I wanted to show off the calendar options. I can use my fiscal period, which has been supported for some time. And then there's a standard periods. So this was supported in the user experience in the last release, but if you selected it and did an export, you would get a supported in the exported grid. So we'll show this behaving successfully in the exported PowerPoint. If I move on to the next tab, risk detail, the point here is to show off there's the ability to color code a pie chart, for example, using studio color mapping or the automated mode. So I'll come into risk by priority, and I'll go into the format area, actually into the style area, and you can see slice colors. This one is set to auto. But if I choose display mapping, it chooses, basically it honors the studio. So I'll set that back to auto. If I come to risk by impact, it's got display mapping set. So that's where it's coming up with low, medium, high based on the studio setting and the display mappings that are in place. So I want to show this in terms of, in the context again of how our export to PowerPoint is supported. Okay, so then I want to go now to the next tab is the 2.0 tab. So last thing I want to show here is one more set of configuration here related to an attribute group, and in particular the fact that you can include an attribute that now shows decimals. And you could do this in the user experience in the last release, but if you had a situation where an attribute had decimals, you would end up with it not supported in the exported document. So I just want to show off that this is working as expected. See, I have my decimal display. This is normal UX experience, but I'm going to show off how the exported document actually honors the setting here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit publish in case I've made any changes there. And then as the report viewer, I'll come back out and I'll grab my 2.0. And here I am again, and I've got my export or schedule. So what I wanted to show off here in the schedule area, I'll go ahead and set this back just by a minute for demonstration purposes. But the point is in export, I now have two options. In the prior release, there was only PowerPoint. Now we have both PDF and PowerPoint. So you can schedule something on a regular basis to be issued to people, that they can get emails, etc. That's all part of the scheduling capabilities that will be demonstrated by another colleague. But the main point here is just the export formats are now supported in this. So I'll go ahead and hit save, which actually triggers the schedule. And in this case, we did an ad hoc, and so it's going to run, it's going to generate a report. So I'm going to go into my scheduled reports tab, and there should be an entry here. This one is still processing. I know this is the one that we just did. Yeah, that's the one we just did, PowerPoint format. What I'll do is I'll just, for purposes of the demonstration, I'll go in and I'll grab this one here. Oops, that's not what I meant. I don't want to go there. So that's just telling us the status. But I go into the reports library, it's going to give me everything that was run. And actually, here it is completed. Here's my dashboard. Let's see, where was I? Investment support 2.0. So I'm going to go 2.0. Oops. I just wanted to show you there's a download button. That's what I meant to show. Apologies. Here's my download button. I'm going to grab that and open it up here. And here we've got all the various tabs that are represented by a page in the PowerPoint, just like we saw originally in the PDF. What I want to do is I'm going to jump directly to where I was showing off. We had our risk detail. And so here's the output of the image, the text widget, the line widget, and the URL that I've constructed. And if I can come in here, I'm in PowerPoint, so I have the ability to actually open the hyperlink. It takes me out to that desired page as a user. And I'll go back to our PowerPoint document right here. So let me go back to the beginning of this file where we started, where we were talking about organizing per period metrics in a row or column presentation. So here's our stacked plan cost, plan forecast for the periods. Slides 2 and 3 are dedicated to that. You can see that, and that continues with the proper headers. The next 2.0 was dedicated to kind of the standard column base where you have grand totals, plan costs, forecast costs, and then per period you have plan costs and forecast costs stacked up. So slide 5 and 6 show that off. Let's go to the next one, the details area. This is where I wanted to show off that the standard calendar is respected here, and that shows that pretty nicely. In this one, the next section, risk detail, this is showing off whether I'm using auto coloring for my pie chart or studio mapping for my pie chart. So here's the example of that successfully showing up. If I continue on to the very last section here, I've got my attribute group, and so it's going to repeat a number of slides based on this grouping, but the point being that this is showing off the decimals successfully, and it's properly honoring what we're looking at. So that's the conclusion of that grouping of functionality. So now we have one more collection of configuration capabilities to review and how they're supported in the exported document. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the group by expanded and collapsed, group by count, group count display, the widget bordering, widget border padding, and table grid cell spacing. And then the last one is all about the display attribute types of value range and description. So let's get out of here and come back to get that there, close that out, and come back to my dashboard. As the report designer, I'm going to come in and I'll select my KPIs by project type, seeded report, and I'll select edit so we can get into this. So I've got 2 tabs here. I'm going to show off a number of things. So the first thing you'll notice is I've got a group by in place, project type. And so the grid is then reflecting that grouping, right? And I can scroll through those different groupings. If I come into my format area, I've got a new capability here to expand, auto expand groups. If I collapse that, it drops back down to just a grouping. So I want to have it. This is how I want it to behave when it's exported to the document. That's the end user. The other thing I want to talk about here is the padding that's associated with this widget, in particular the table, but more importantly, the grid spacing. This is a new capability, and it flows all the way through to the exported document. So I've got it set at 1 to basically reduce the white space between the rows. You'll see the impact of increasing this. It definitely adds more white space to the grid. You may want that depending on the content. So I'm going to reduce it back down to 1, just to remove that white space. You'll also notice that this widget type here, this text again, it's got the same capability here. I wanted to show off for some padding, and we looked at that on one of the other reports too. So it's in all these different areas you can look at padding, and in particular the table, the grid cell spacing. The other thing I wanted to show is the next tab. It's kind of set to collapsed. The other thing here is if I go in there to the format area, I'm showing group counts. So you see the number 17, 7, 4, 13. So that's actually the number of items that are below, right? That makes sense. So I can, if I remove that, it just removes it. And in some cases you may not want it, but this I just want for example purposes. And last thing I want to do is just expand the small group so you can see the content that's there while you're viewing the report, but I want to show the impact of the designer's decisions with respect to choosing that expand or collapse function. The other thing I wanted to point out is we have in use here the value and the description and the range description for business alignment is here with the value. So this is a combination that's set up in the Modern UX Administration attributes area. You determine on how you want it to display, whether it's just the value, just the description, or both. So this is an example of both. Okay. So what I want to do now is let's go ahead and publish this in case I made any changes there. And we'll come back now as the designer. We'll hit edit. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit preview. And I've got my 2 tabs, and I'm going to do export to PowerPoint. And you can see the notification banner there was there for a moment. Notification area has been populated. Go ahead and click that and download it. And here is my updated document. And again, it's all the content comes out, regardless of how I do it, from preview or schedule or directly ad hoc through the export button. And it's separated by tab name. And you'll see here, I've got this is set to expand all. So it spans across multiple pages, and notice how the column headers are maintained as I navigate from slide to slide. Again, this was, I had minimum white space. So I had set it to 1 to reduce the white space. So notice how tight this is. You're also seeing the range description and value displayed. This is an example of it being supported all the way through. And if I go to the next section here, I had chosen it to be collapsed, right? And I had chosen to also show the group counts. I didn't do it on this guy. I purposely didn't include the group counts. So this is an example of using collapsed with the group counts. And if you recall, I had opened up the small project section for viewing in the browser, but the export to PowerPoint or PDF respects the selection made by the designer to collapse. So that's why it's in a collapsed state, regardless of what the user had done in the user experience. All right, so that concludes the demonstration of the newly supported export capabilities encompassing PowerPoint, PDF, and CSV. I thank you for your time.